Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com. I am Mike Kazaza. I once wrote a book called Waiting for the Fall. Chris Anderson, it's fall.
I don't know how much further it can fall. This is as far as it falls.
This is recency bias, of course. I've covered a lot of brutal defeats. Brutal. I don't remember Hail Mary. I remember buzzer beaters. I can remember walk-off field goals, walk-off touchdowns, overtime losses. I don't remember Hail Mary. And then just something where you get I have no investment, but there's the whiplash from the past, I don't know, 20 minutes of real time here from realizing that West Virginia was going to mess around and erase an 11-point lead and then severely jeopardize a very, very small lead in a very, very small margin, albeit against long, long odds, and then suddenly lose a game that at just different stages, Chris, had no business losing. And if we're being honest, should not have lost and cannot afford to lose. And here we are with a team that is 4-2 now, 2-1 in the Big 12, and this is one of the easier games remaining. It looked easy at times. West Virginia made it difficult at times. We can get into the first, I don't know, 59 minutes and 48 seconds. I think we have to start with the final 12, and that means we have to close off from this conversation a tremendous 4th and 10 throw, catch, run from Garrett Green to Hudson Clement. And we begin with, I would assume, an extremely regrettable teaching point, if you will, penalty on Garrett Green for excessive celebration. That this is so unfair for a game where he pressed 400 yards passing and played very, very well, but he made the ending possible. That's harsh. It's too definitive. It's reality, though.
It almost feels like that Rice Ford Wheaton mistake in the pit game. Remember we hopped on that. What did I don't even here's the thing. I don't even remember what else Bryce Ford Wheaton did in that game. But I remember he had what, like a dozen catches? Like, didn't he have an amazing game in that game?
Yeah.
But now all we remember is the drop that turned into the pick six. I don't know if people, if you talk about this game, a year from now, are they gonna be like, oh yeah, remember Garrett Green threw for 400 and counted for 4 touchdowns and threw a touchdown to Hudson Clement with 12 seconds left? Like, they might not remember that because they're gonna remember this ending and they're like, yeah, he threw that touchdown, but then he got that penalty, and thus is athletics. Like, that is sports, and you are either the goat or the goat, if you will. And he was looking like he was going to be the leader of this team. I was already ready to toot my own horn about how in the pregame pod I said this was the game where we could decide whether or not Garrett Green was the future quarterback of this program. And then that happens. I don't know if that really changed my opinion about his skill set, but the emotional roller coaster that you have with Green, like that wasn't an anomaly. What happened with that penalty? That is who he is, for better and worse.
I'll say this: I cannot pin it on him. I think it's way too reductive to even boil down the finish to him. We can get into some of the other decisions at the end there that really do
Oh, we will.
confuse me. It's too. I just think it's too much. If I'm the officials, you've picked up multiple holding penalties tonight. You can't look the other way on a personal foul for excessive celebration on a 50-yard touchdown on 4th and 10 to win the game with 12 seconds left on the road. You can't pick it up. I don't know what he did. I'm assuming he took his helmet off because that seems to be an automatic. And then officials are generally extremely subjective and forgiving when it comes to celebrations on an individual. A team penalty is different. As I understand, this is not a team penalty. It's on Garrett Green. Correct me if I'm wrong, and this before I go way too down the rabbit hole. But I have a hard time with that penalty.
Oh yeah,
Nevertheless,
no, no, no. You're right. It was the helmet thing. I mean, they
okay,
didn't say it on the broadcast, but he was running around on the field without his helmet on.
okay, yeah,
Media post. So
I,
I'm assuming that's what that was, and they called
I,
it on number six.
I muted the broadcast about 3 seconds in. Wonderful night for me, but I hate the penalty. I understand. I hate it. I just hate it. So I cannot pin that on him because there are just so many other things that before and even after that get it. But the fact is, it brings the kickoff back 15 yards. You've got to be really careful because at that point you're thinking, you know what? Snead has really scared me with his legs a couple times, and Golden brought one back. We have to do something here. I don't know if you blast it deep and end up, I don't know, on the 5 and just daring to do something. If you sky kick it, they did what they did, a little bit of a return. This is when it gets really interesting, Chris. West Virginia had no timeouts, understandably, used them on their final defensive possession, but I don't know how organized they were. And I'm positive they practiced this. This is probably a period a week, maybe 2 periods a week on just defending Hail Marys. It's not an extremely complicated task, but I think the first one they were expecting, I don't know, a 65-yard throw in the air from Smith. They give up an easy one underneath, and I'll forgive that. I'll forgive that. I have no problem with that because there's only 7 seconds. And how many times do you see a Hail Mary take 7 or more seconds because the quarterback is trying to move around, get out of pressure, get himself a runway to step into a ball and launch it. So I don't even have a problem with that. I think some people will. Do you have an issue with the first down play there, or are you solely focused on the second down play?
I'm solely focused on second down play.
Where do we begin?
Let's start with personnel. Um,
Okay.
well, but wait. No. Let's not start with personnel. Let's start with lineup first, like how they were aligned, because you may not realize. Like I was thinking it as it was as it was happening, and I know you had it on mute, the broadcast on mute, but your boy Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman were both like, well, West Virginia players are kind of slowly moonwalking back towards the end zone.
Really?
They're walking, and yeah, and I'm staring at it, and I'm looking at even further up, like Lance Dixon up near the 40 for whatever reason, kind of just walking around. I'm like, where is he going? What is his purpose here? Who is he defending? Like, is he going to run with these guys? You watch the clip. The answer is no, not really. They kind of go by him. And then I can't tell who that is. Is that Lee Koba who is like spying? As like they show 4 pass rushers and then somebody drops back to spy. You can't tell if that's Bradley or Koba. Like, what is that? What you either rush the passer or you drop back in coverage. Why are you spying on a Hail Mary from the 50-yard line? I,
I'm not sure.
I mean, so much loss for words for so many of these things, and that's just the beginning. Because of course, I mean, do you want to go ahead and talk about the personnel as well?
Well, yeah, if you're going to pass rush, are you pass rushing with Ed Vistaranen? Seriously, are you? Or are you going
Probably
like
not.
Martin, Tomiwa, Bartlett, Bradley? Like you're not trying to stop the run here. This is again, this is I don't want to say it's like a hindsight thing, but like teams practice this stuff and coaches are detailed on things like this, and they're going to spend a practice period a week on it, maybe 2 or whatever. They're certainly going to think about who they put in the field. Um, Vesteranen, Martin, and I believe it's Bradley and Koba. Excuse me, Bartlett and Koba. Um, Chris, they have 2 spears in the field, and one of them is Lance Dixon, who is a linebacker basically, who has become a spear and is kind of deferred to Hershey McLaurin in the starter's role. They have 2 spears in the field, which are hybrid linebacker safeties. They have 2 corners and 3 safeties in the field. They don't have anybody near as I can tell taller than like as a defensive back, taller than McLaurin, who I believe is 6'2". And
Yeah,
again,
I was
not
saying,
not
can
really a
I
defensive back.
interject on the Anthony Wilson as your deep guy, who is measured in at a very, very generous 5'9"?
Marcus Floyd, who has had better games. But again, hamstrings, Chris. If not, who? What other safeties are you putting back there that know how to do it? What other corners are you putting back there? Now, I will ask you this. Where's Andrew Wilson Lamp? Tall,
Yeah,
long corner. Is he not in the Hail Mary package? Jacoby Spells is, I believe, 6 foot longer guy. Ruffin's fine. He was in the screen. He was in the picture. That's unfortunate for him. Again, I don't have a problem with having your 2 corners out there. I don't have a problem with the safeties out there, especially because they just don't have a lot of options. But not a You'll see Rob Gronkowski on Hail Marys. It blew up spectacularly in their face, as you know as a Miami Dolphins fan, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll see receivers back there sometimes. And maybe West Virginia is too traditional in the sense some coaches are not going to be exotic when it comes to a play that you might see just once a year, maybe, if that. And again, how much practice time you devote to it? Are you really going to give a receiver reps? I don't know, but I imagine this is going to be on the drawing board. I don't know, on the plane ride home tonight, maybe. That you probably have to go back and study this and figure out why did this go wrong? Not what went wrong, because we know what went wrong. Why did it go wrong? It certainly starts at the snap, because like there's a guy who's just standing on the 40 who has nothing to do with the play. Lance Dixon is backtracking, chasing the play, and there's a tip ball, and he's not really in the picture to do anything there. Again, this ball ends on a tip to a player who was running toward the goal line. That's really hard to believe, and that's how it happened.
It is. I think you put it best right there. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that this was the Hail Mary package. Not your best pass rushers, couple extra linebackers, two spears, 5'9" safety, and then another safety that the own head coach has said is not good in coverage. I again, like there's just so many things that are I can't wrap my head around with that last play. And then to watch the ball go up and see Clorin go up trying to catch it instead of knocking it down is, you know, just the cherry on top.
Neil Brown crushed. The camera catches him right away. You can some of the sideline shots, because it's coming from the Houston sideline, and you can see the West Virginia sideline in the background, and just the agony is clear. Um, it's probably lyrical, poetic, whatever. If you are a fan of just the drama, and pictures worth 1,000 words. If you're a West Virginia fan, player, parent, whatever, it sucks. I understand that, but you can just tell how just devastating this was. And then Brown, I don't know, man. I hope he got his pound of flesh with the officials on the penalty. Did you have to call that? Why'd you call it? You realize what you did? Were you trying to make this more exciting? I hope he got that stuff in. I also assume that, and I'll have to get an understanding of this, they did not do the PAT. And without question, Houston is going to just take a knee. But Joe Pisarcik comes to mind, just stuff like that. Like maybe they bobble it. Like you just saw a miracle. You want a chance for your miracle. Trouble is, you also just had your miracle too, um, 2 minutes earlier. But I would assume that some of the conversation with Brown on the field, again, is him making sure he gets that 2 cents in about the penalty. But also, are we going to kick the PAT here? And I think when you have a game winner, a walk off like that, you don't do it. You don't have to. And again, it's inconsequential because Houston's going to take a snap and take a knee. They're not going to kick it. They're not going to get a kick blocked by a team that blocked two last week and run it the other way and go to overtime. So it doesn't really matter. But to me, that was a snapshot and just how frustrating and devastating and painful this is. And this is a just, oh man, this is I don't know what this is, Chris. It's not a kick in the stomach. It's not a kick in the nether regions. It seems like it's one of each, and maybe something else too. This one really, really, really hurts, especially at the end of a week where West Virginia was kind of foretelling that things were turning. This is a different program, a different team, and the offensive numbers say yes, the defensive numbers say no. But this is a game that they had lined up to win, and they did not win it, and it's going to cost them.
It's going to cost a big. I was talking about this before. I think it was with our Houston guys, and I was like, this is just this weird situation here where Houston's not a very good football team. And, other than the Dana angle, like why would this game be so important? And it did just have this feel of, despite a 4-1 start, like a lot of that goodwill built up with that 4-1 start could be lost in one night. And based off of immediate reaction I'm seeing from fans on our message board and peppering me with all sorts of stuff on social media, that seems to be the case, because this one's going to hurt. And I think it's going to add even more. I think confusion's the best thing. Right now, it seems like a lot of anger from fans, but I think confusion might be the better word, because, hey, through the first 5 games, it's like, hey, offense stinks, but it's holding on to the ball. You're not making stupid mistakes, and the defense is great, and special teams is great. And then you get to this game, and the defense stinks, and the special teams stink, and the offense is great, but they're making stupid mistakes again. So it's just this the team that you saw tonight in all facets, good, like what got better and what got worse is completely different from the team you saw for the first few weeks. And so fans are now even more confused, which is turning to anger because of how it went and who it went happened to.
Yeah, it's this just brings stuff to the surface that you kind of hope you had submerged. And it's maybe not fair to the conversation, but it does bring the conversation back. And this is what you do. I mean, this is unfortunately, if you're involved in it, that's what happens. Those are the consequences to actions. Long time between games. West Virginia hasn't played this month before tonight. Last game, September 30th. And perhaps you noticed, Chris, a lot of media attention pointed at West Virginia this week. And I
Let me
talked to
ask you about that because I got about 15 messages about that saying, what the hell are they doing letting all the national media in during the bye week before Dana? And a lot of messages of, oh God, now it's a definite loss. Uh,
well, I think they're
What do you think?
unrelated. Um,
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
you
yeah. I mean,
probably
I don't think they lost because of this. I don't think it like deterred, distracted them from the game at hand because this seemed to be I mean, defensively, some struggles. I think a lot of that was losing
yeah.
one-on-ones, which I talked about in my stock up, stock down. Like, guys, I don't think the scheme was wrong. And on offense, they got a lot more creative and that was coaching and play calling. That was different and good and good things happened. So I don't think they got distracted, but the timing seemed to rub at least a few people the wrong way.
I don't know, man. I don't think you could be pushing the car and say you arrived at the wedding. You know, like if you're still a mile away, you're still a mile away. If you're in the driveway and you're pushing, you're still not at the party. So that's just me. I haven't read. I read the story that Brandon Marceller from 24/7 did because I was very interested in that. I like Brandon. We work with him. Great. The other one was it was an ESPN Athletic. Is
The
that right?
athletic,
Was it
the
an
athletic.
embedded piece?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not just doing that. And I like the guy who wrote it too, but I'm jealous and mad. I don't have that access. So extremely petty of me. Don't care. Good for him. It's a weird thing that it happens right before this because who are they trying to convince, Chris?
The
And
wrong people.
this is the one
The
thing with it.
people you need to convince are the people in Morgantown,
Yeah, like
not the national media.
well, I just mean like outsiders or insiders at this point. Like, are they trying to get people to really look inside of what they have going on there? That's fine, but shouldn't results really bring that, to the forefront and make it completely transparent? You would think so. Maybe that's an unfair criticism. If they win the game tonight, you're saying, wow, what an opportunistic moment by Neil Brown to let the national media in. The other side of that is what happens tonight, and you have to deal with it. But I do think they've worked really hard to be able to open the doors and to see people there waiting and wanting to write about them in positive terms. Because for him, especially, all the ink has been spilled about his job certainty. And for a moment to him to embrace something different, I don't begrudge him for that 1 minute. So that's fine. I get that. But the timing is certainly conspicuous. And if you're into omens or just momentum or doing what works, this is certainly it's a step to the side of what had happened before. Um, which goes over some other stuff, including the defense. Chris, Donovan Smith completed his last 15 passes, including a Hail Mary. That
Oh, I thought they said 16. Your boy Tim Brando said 16.
is it?
I was
Oh,
about to
that's right.
say,
The check down.
are you
The check down.
purposefully leaving down the Hail Mary?
The check
That's
down. Correct. I'm
brutal.
forgetting the check down. Okay. That's wild. Um, to get on and like high degree difficulty throws too. And for a guy in the beginning of the game who looked off, he could not hit passes in the flat. He could not hit simple stuff. And they were open, just wide open sometimes. And I wrote this at halftime in our VIP thread. They figured some things out at the end of that first half and they went to it. And you could see they were setting some things up for the second half. I've watched this offense for 8 years, and you can see sometimes where they're going for the seam routes, when they're trying to set things up one-on-one outside, and they went to it again and again and again. It was very successful. This was not like West Virginia's defense. West Virginia's defense had not allowed a second half score touchdown, I should say, in the third quarter. We're minutes here. Had not allowed a third quarter touchdown in the last 3 games. They allowed a lot of points tonight in the third quarter and then in the fourth quarter too. There were 42 points in the fourth quarter, but their second half defense had been great in this winning streak, especially in the third quarter, and got completely overwhelmed in the second half tonight. And it's not a manpower thing. I thought Ben Cutter was okay. Didn't have a problem with him. The secondary up to that last play had issues for sure because they got picked on. Floyd didn't have a great game. Some of the corner issues were kind of just what they were, and they just don't have subs. This is what we talked about at the beginning of the year. If they were going to get injured, they were going to have problems because they don't have a lot of people, period. And then if the people you're keeping off the field are suddenly on the field and there's no one else to challenge them, you're stuck. And that's kind of where they are right now. No Aubrey Brooks tonight. Obviously, no Montre Miller for the year. No Keyshawn Cobb for the year. Stuck. And it's not going to be better before Burks gets back, and it's not going to be better at cornerback. That is kind of who they are. They have what they have right now. And is tonight any sort of foreshadowing, especially with Oklahoma State coming to town and an offense it's an air raid offense.
I was going to give a little pushback on the manpower problem, not because, again, not because these guys that are out there are bad, but because you could. I'm very curious what the snap counts are going to say. I mean, I know what my eyes think they saw tonight, and that was not a lot of subs outside of the defensive line. And I mean, I'm talking like Ruffin and Bishop out there for every single snap.
Every snap.
Uh, Koba and maybe Ben Cutter out there for every snap or close to it. I mean, those guys looked exhausted at some points in the second half, and they're only playing as well as their bodies will allow them to at that point. And like you said, they're stuck. Like West Virginia's stuck. They don't have another option right now, and that's due to injuries. You know, losing players in the past couple off seasons and stuff like that. And I don't know what the answer is going to be, or if they even have an answer. But those guys look freaking exhausted in the second half, and the stats and the scores kind of show that. But I'm very curious what the snap counts are going to show.
Gyro Favors played a couple series. I don't know that they played the nickelback tonight, Chris.
Yeah,
I'd
I
have to
mean,
look that one
it
up.
looked like the same guys out there almost every. I mean, other than defensive line, it looked like the same, seven other guys basically the entire game, almost.
It's tough. Let's do some positives. Sound good? Green
Yeah,
Green was not very good in the first half. He was 5 for 12. In the second half, he is 15 for 26, which again isn't terrific, but man, we're talking about a guy. We kind of obsess about 20-yard air passes, right? Passes that go 20 yards in the air. At one point, he had 13 completions for 260 plus yards. That means he was averaging 20 plus yards per completion. He ends up 20 completions, 38 attempts, 391 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That is not his fault. In fact, that's a bobble by Jalen Anderson, who is he better be careful because Jaheim White's taken over. I don't know what's up with Justin Johnson. You probably need to be curious now about his future. And DJ Oliver traveled and did not travel last week. So White's number 2 right now. Anderson has not lit the world on fire, and that is a game changing. And if you're going to pin things on Garrett Green for a penalty, you got to give Green a nod here. Say the interception is not his fault. That was a perfectly thrown ball on a play that they really, really like. They go to it a bunch. That's what Nico Marchio got moving with against Texas Tech. That same formation, that same route concept. Not his fault on the interception there. That's his only miscue. Apart from some errant passes, I get that, but that's what you're going to get with Green. You're going to get a guy who turns in 20 for 38, and you say, holy cow, great game. Ran the ball okay, pretty much stayed out of trouble, made a lot of things happen with his leg. You brought this up. It's just the game where you make your decision on him in the future. I feel like it's not a question anymore.
they have, or the coaching staff has, or he has, or however we want to phrase this. I'm going to say they have embraced the Skyler Howard offense. This is the type of game that reminded me of a Skyler Howard led offense, for better and worse. And again, West Virginia won a lot of games with Skyler Howard at quarterback. Um, he bombed it deep. He ran the ball. He was emotional. He threw interceptions, but they won games, and the offense was kind of exciting at times. And I went back and looked. The last time a WVU player 20 or fewer receptions, and he had 20 completions for 391 yards. Last time any WVU player was even close to that or around that, Skyler Howard, September 10th, 2016. 20 completions, 389 yards. Looks like 2 yard difference. It was like exactly like Skylar Howard kind of game. Um, and I dig it. Like embrace it. That is what Green can run. Green has a strong arm. And it may not be entirely accurate. You're going to miss some of these more precise throws. He doesn't have a lot of touch and finesse. As you saw when he literally dislocated EJ Horton's pinky finger. Um, so don't fight it. Just embrace it. Just you're gunning it deep. You're going you're going long. Or you're running the ball. You're going long, and that's it. And that's what they should embrace on offense. And they seem to do that today. I think that was a couple of the things my stock up was Green and the offensive creativity. This looked like a different offense, and maybe it was all that window dressing that you talk about with the pre-snap motion. I mean, I think it was like a 10-second, little intro to every single play that you had to sit through, but it worked mostly. And, I think if West Virginia can put up 30, 40 points, they're going to win a lot of games this year.
Yeah, you think so?
I think so. I think I'm going to go
Well,
out on a limb.
I really liked the offense and what I saw because something that we had talked about. I don't remember if it was definitely on my open week questions that need week 6 answers. How was this going to look different offensively because they had to change things and it looked differently tonight. You saw a lot of pistol, you saw more Jaheim White, you saw more Rodney Gallagher, you saw more EJ Horton, and I loved what they did with Devin Carter. Devin Carter had not been able to get open and get it going outside. He was rarely an outside receiver tonight, and if he was stacked behind a receiver. He was getting free releases. He played a lot of slot. He played a lot in bunches. He was getting free. And if that big guy gets moving without getting bumped or without getting somebody jamming him, if he can work in the middle of the field and run those, probably, I guess they would call them like over routes where you're kind of running over that second level of the defense and you're running over across the other side of the field. Green really liked that moving out. If you can move Green to one side and he can track a receiver across the field, that receiver's as big as Carter. That's a welcoming thing. Also, Carter doesn't have to perimeter block when he's not on the perimeter, and blocking is not his strong suit right now. So you know what? Just like any other coaching in any other sport, you don't put players in position where they're not comfortable. And if he's not a comfortable blocker on the perimeter, which he's had some moments this year where he has not looked very good, those have been highlighted online by the coaches, so on and so forth. Guess what? He shouldn't be doing that. And they were able to sit down in the open week and say, you know what, we're going to get you off the perimeter. Or if we're on the perimeter, you're not going to be on the line. We're going to give you free releases. This is his best game tonight. He looked dangerous. He had 11 targets, only caught 5 passes for 116 yards. He's going to get dinged for a drop. It was a great play by a really, really good defensive player. That guy made Halsey made, I think, 15 tackles and had a crunching hit that knocked the ball out of Carter's hands. It ultimately didn't matter because Clement scores. And again, the offenses look good and move quick at times. There was some tempo. I thought tempo would help them get into rhythms and sustain things, but the defense is what kind of set them back tonight. It just kind of got picked apart. And then really at the end of that second quarter, that final second half of that second quarter, things just started to go Houston's way. They started to play a little bit quicker. And I thought that drive at the end of the first half where Houston had to go tempo to move, only 5 for 5, or I think like maybe 35, 45 yards for Smith. He started to believe in himself. He started to feel really good. They get a touchdown to go in the halftime with a lead, and all of a sudden, Cougars wake up and they feel like they're in the game.
About that. Yeah, no, I think he's a guy that, and when we talked on the pregame pod, I said, I'd be a little worried about him because he got hot in those last 2 games, 75% completion percentage or something like that, and was throwing TDs, not throwing interceptions. But he came out looking terrible. I mean, Dana was ripping him a new one coming to the sidelines multiple times in that first half. But yeah, that stretch there where WV went back to back 3 and outs on 2 separate drives that took up like a total of 2 minutes.
Brutal.
And then it just like, it was kind of a situation where it was like West Virginia could have eaten up some time. They could have scored, done the thing that every coach loves, where you score right before the half and then you get the ball back in the second half, or just ate up the clock. And they couldn't. They just couldn't do it. And yeah, you keep giving him enough chances. Keep giving him enough chances. He finally found his rhythm and got it moving there at the end of the first half. You're right.
Yeah, and I think if we look back at some time here in the future, if things go well for West Virginia, or if they don't, really it's kind of choose your own adventure here. But you'll go to this drive because that was a referendum on at that moment on Garrett Green and on the defense. West Virginia got the ball with about 3:40 left on its 10-yard line, ran the ball 3 times, did not drain the clock, and just said, you know what, quarterback's not going to throw a pick here. Can't be intercepted in a handoff. And we trust the defense. And what happened? 3 and out, punt it back. Houston goes down and scores. The defense started to unravel a little bit. And then go to the end of the game, Chris. You give the ball to Green, and what does he do? Bang, 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 bang. Down the field, scores a touchdown. And look at this, too. Go back and look at the play by plays. Houston's first 3 touchdowns, West, again, a kickoff return and 2 offensive touchdowns. One at the end of the first half, one in the third quarter. So after a kickoff return touchdown, after a drive at the end of the first half, and after a drive in the third quarter, Green led him on touchdown drives every time. They did not trust him at the end of that first half, it seemed. And maybe it's not him as much as just like, let's not risk it. We have the lead. Let's trust our defense. But the defense did not stand up to that challenge. I wonder if that's a turning point in philosophy for Brown, for the coaches, whatever, or if that's foreshadowing of what may come. It seems like they're going to have to really circle that sequence there and say, all right, is this a pivot moment for us? I don't know. But the end of the game, and we forget about this completely. Doug Belk was playing like single high safety. It was like a cover one, extremely forgiving coverage, and just matching up guys with, as you mentioned, really, really soft coverage. Guys were going to be open because they left them open there too. But Green picked them apart and made plays and looked really, really competent. Had his, well, I was going to say had his head on straight, but that was fleeting. But there were a lot of good signs to the offense tonight, and it's going to be forgotten. Is that transferable to a home game against Oklahoma State? We'll see. They better hope so.
Yeah, look at that second half. Here are the drives for West Virginia in the second half. 4 plays, touchdown. 6 plays should have been a touchdown. That was the dropped Jalen Anderson that ended up as an interception. 11 plays, touchdown. 3 and out. 11 plays, touchdown. 7 plays, touchdown. So they had 6 drives in the second half. 4 of them were touchdowns. A fifth should have been a touchdown, and then the sixth was a 3 and out. Like, I mean, obviously that's not sustainable, but that's a sign of, again, some changes at the half and getting more aggressive. I agree with you. Like, they got more aggressive in that second half. And I think after that point there, where they didn't at the end of the first half, and it cost them, and the offense kind of carried them in the second half.
Yeah, I mean that turning point may have already been isolated and studied because they were, like you said, much more pedal metal in that second half there too, and just frankly, Houston's offense has better skill players than TCU for sure. Probably also Texas Tech. Texas Tech's running game is superior. The quarterback situation tonight, I would say, definitely better than Texas Tech given the injury, and I would take Donovan Smith tonight over Chandler Morris. And you just wonder, West Virginia's run into two cohesive, effective, healthy offenses at home, but Penn State and Houston, and look what happened. Those teams have gotten the better of West Virginia's defense. I don't want to say fool's gold. I hate that because you still have to play the games and win them. And as we saw in the first half against Duquesne, bad things can happen against bad teams sometimes too. But I just wonder right now how much of tonight is reality, or at least a preview into the future. And then I also wonder how many offenses they're going to see that are built like this one. It's a true air raid. Got a quarterback who got hot at home, and Golden and Brown and Manjack are good players. They have just enough in the running game to keep you honest, probably. Um, there's good offenses left, I guess, but I just wonder how much this turns the worm, so to speak.
Yeah, this is going to be, obviously this next game is going to be one to watch, because this, if you're 5-1 going into homecomings next weekend, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, you got all the momentum in the world at that point. And again, you're staring down, as you have written since before the season, a rather easy second half schedule. Things could have gotten very special. You would have been in the top 25. You would have been ranked. You would have been one game away from bowl eligibility. Everything going your way. Now, gotta be careful. Gotta be careful out there.
Remember when they almost beat Oklahoma a couple years ago and they said we'll see them in the Big 12 championship game?
I do recall something to that.
It's the last time I remember bravado like this. And obviously things did not go well. That was 2 years ago. Similar like chest thumping tonight, this week I should say, just didn't work out, and we'll see what happens now. It's I'm trying to think just back in the back of my head here, Chris, like worst losses. I mean, they've lost lopsided before. I can't think of a loss like this under Brown. And just quickly, the one that comes to my head, and this is something that we can probably debate about or talk about, whether it's in follow up stories or three things or on the boards. But like that game against Miami, the Quincy Wilson, Brandon Merriweather game, the Kellen Winslow catch, the John Petey field goal. That's the one that I think stings the most when it comes to top of my head as it goes to like what fans probably felt like, just because that was Miami, like legit Miami. This is not Miami, but it's that coach who you really want to beat, and to lose on a Hail Mary and such an exciting finish where you're just thinking, man, 39 points, gritty again, things are turning, and then whoosh, to have that tablecloth pulled off the setting is, again, it's a kick here, it's a kick there, it's a punch here, it's a punch there. It's going to take some time to get over this. This is recency here, but I wonder if this is not the biggest challenge for Neil Brown in his 5 years. And a guy who's seen a bunch, but just the nature of what it's going to take right now to be on that plane, to stand in front of the team in the locker room, to talk to them tomorrow, to get them ready for next Saturday's game on Monday in practice. Like that, there's just a series of things right now that are probably unique to him. I don't know if he's lost on a Hail Mary before, but not here, not with these guys, not when they think they were on the uptick like this right now. This is a really, really big moment for him in his tenure here as the head coach, and it'll be extremely interesting to see how they respond. And I'm assuming that they will want to stay on track. How they do that, if they do that, certainly worth watching right now, because it's not going to be easy. They can pull it off. They certainly seem they have the disposition, but just human nature right now, it's going to be hard.
These extra couple of days might help them. 'Cause, yeah, this is emotionally, I mean, this is devastating for them. I mean, if you watch those guys on the sidelines, not the defenders that were going out on the field, but the offense and everybody else that was sitting over there, staffers, everybody, game was won. It was over. They were already talking and celebrating as if the game was over. And then to have that kind of pulled away from you is something else entirely, and could really have some lingering effects. But a couple extra days, maybe that helps. But yeah, they got to get back on track, because I'm trying to think of a game like this where it was just back and forth at the end like that. And I go back to like the 2012 season with the TCU game, the Oklahoma game, that were both one pointers. But at that point, to be quite honest, like the season was already kind of done because of earlier losses. So this one stings even more, I think.
Lots of time to unpack this because, as you mentioned, extra space between games. Text from game day, Monday, three things I think, three things I know. Sunday, we're going to keep all that on schedule for me. We'll definitely have some snap counts, some notes and quotes in the post game in our coverage on the website. Friday, Chris, what do you have up your sleeve?
That'll be that for that weekend. Some more recruiting news coming up, and then we'll have some more basketball stuff from Eilert and a couple of the players that were available earlier this week.
Secret scrimmage Saturday.
Mm.
It's basketball season because it's fall. Until then, I'm Mike Casaza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.